Hi, you're with Peter Carr and Scott Stewart, and welcome to LonghausTV. Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk about our recently released cloud report, the Trusted Infrastructure as a Service Providers in Australia 2012. So, Scott, it's been a manic 3 months. This is a long research project for us now in its second year. Another great result, very much anticipated, and on the back end of a cross-country tour in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and Canberra. Yep. Now's the opportunity where we can talk a little bit about the results and provide some information.
Yeah, we knew we were going to be in for an interesting study when we realised that just the number of vendors that we approached that had a cloud message was 170. Yeah. Last year, I think that was about 130.
Yeah, there's definitely more than last year, and so it just goes to show that the cloud is enduring. It's changing, and I think that was one of the key findings for us this year. Fundamentally, the cloud service has changed, but the topic itself is enduring, and probably we can say getting stronger.
Yeah, I think so. And last year we were probably fairly strong on the sort of provider who was actually a hosting provider, but calling themselves a cloud provider. But I think what's becoming very evident is that the cloud technologies are permeating all those models. So whether you're a hoster, outsourcer, co-location, managed services, you're going to use cloud technology. So the whole notion, I think, of a cloud vendor is really becoming that it's just really that these providers are using cloud technologies to enable their business.
So cloud as this ubiquitous utility-like function is now, interestingly, has pervaded the market itself. And so you're no longer just a cloud provider, but cloud technologies are being used to deliver all sorts of services.
Yeah, that's right. I think, and in the presentation, I used the analogy of TCPIP, which I think was 72, came out and it was going to change the world, and it effectively did. But we don't think of it anymore. But we all use it. And I think it's very similar to cloud. It's just that these service providers are going to use cloud to enable their sort of offering. But I think one thing about the study was really clear was there's been a vast improvement in the overall score. So we assess these providers on their solution performance and their vendor performance, and we might actually show a graph now up on the screen, which shows that last year. So the big sort of blue circle that you see on the graph is the scattering of all the scores from last year's vendors, and you can.
So there was quite an array, wasn't there? It was quite spread out when we kind of look at this. So this scale is really a 0 to 5 scale, both ways on the solution performance and on the vendor performance.
Yeah, that's right, and you can see that there was such a mix of, I think this indicates to me that this was a market that was racing to get a cloud product out there, and so as soon as they could get something that it was out there, whether or not it had all the rich features and functionality, clearly, as you can see, it was, a lot didn't.
So then in 2012, the market changed, it matured, we saw a stronger grouping, I guess. So even though we kind of in this study we look at a range of vendors this year, 45. And there's always when you're providing scores, there's a logical sequence, right, 1 through 45. But what does that mean this year compared to last year's results?
Well, I think you can definitely see that they've grouped together and they've definitely improved. Last year when we spoke to a lot of the service providers, we asked them about different functionality, and a lot of them said, well, we're waiting for VMware or Microsoft or Citrix to release that patch. And it did highlight that a lot of these providers are really dependent on their underlying technology, and hence I think a lot of those sort of core platform providers have released a lot of improvements and a lot of patches, and that's helped some of these providers to improve their score. So definitely there's been a great improvement, and it's very, very positive. There's still some underlying concerns, but across the whole market in relation to just a lack of investment in ITSM, so service management, security, quality management, disaster recovery. There's just
these are all traditional service delivery functions, aren't they? So what we're essentially seeing is the adoption of cloud through traditional models, which is probably why we see this year a Datacom, a traditional managed services organisation, come into the market. They've successfully made this transition to cloud, which is something to really call out. But those things that you spoke about, quality, service management, standards and all those sorts of things. They're the things that we've come used to in terms of traditional sourcing or arrangements.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're the things I think they're going to polarise the market. I think down one end you'll have the pure platform play providers who are really interested in just providing that environment, the sort of swipe and go, not really interested in talking to the customer as such, very sort of utility-based computing. And down the other end, you have these IT as a service providers who are using cloud technologies, using infrastructure as a service, not going to the market particularly as an infrastructure as a service provider, but using IaaS as a core underlying technology or enabler to allow them to deliver the full spectrum of IT as a service.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's throw up our second slide now, and I think this is, this for me really sums up the study this year. And we can see that there's this threshold of performance, right? This 3 benchmark, which last year I think we had. How many was it that outperformed that 3 benchmark last year?
Well, in the top quadrant there was 1.
Yeah. Okay, so 1. There you go. And this year we're seeing a dramatic increase in the numbers of those that have actually surpassed that level of measurement. So for us, that's really exciting. There is a lot of maturity. What it also means is, again, when you're looking at that spectrum of vendors, that 45 that we've critiqued, even the ones who are at the lower end of our pulse this year actually would have been leaders last year in terms of the cloud market. So those that are actually in that top half of the market this year, that top 20, it's a stellar field.
Yes, and lots of discussions with those sort of top 5 last year to going, my goodness, what happened? There's a lot of providers caught up. A lot of providers have done a lot of work. So whether they've gone from tier 2 to tier 3, whether they've gone from debt model to operating under cash flow budgeting, and whether they've formed strategic alliances with certain other providers. There's been just a lot of effort, a lot of activity in getting themselves from that sort of lower quadrant up to that top quadrant.
But it's also the way that the demand side of the market, the customers, the end user organisations are approaching cloud too, right? That's really starting to segment the market. So we will see those traditional providers, those in the top 5, 10 last year, are largely still those in the top 5 or 10 this year. And I think that comes down to the quality of service delivered to their customer organisations. Anyone in that top 10 to be there, you got to have great customer service, right? So I think importantly, the message for cloud is that it's very much it's about the customer, and the requirements that we're seeing, certainly from the inquiries coming through to us, is that they're very different for every organisation. One may be looking at a cloud infrastructure project. One may be looking at changing their outsourcing service provider that they've had in place for the last 6 years. Someone else may be looking at it from an application perspective. So it really, there's no single cloud discussion going on at the moment.
There isn't, and this talk of we're moving to the cloud or we're going to choose a cloud vendor, to me is just nonsense, really. Particularly when you had a chance to look at these vendors, you can see how different they are. I made the comment quite a few times that we're comparing apples, oranges, and nectarines. It's that different. So you've got to go in not with your eyes closed. You've got to understand the sort of vendor that you're dealing with and where they're playing and where their service level or their focus is, and you've got to accept, because a lot of the vendors, we ask question, who's responsible for DR? And a staggering number said, no, we're not. It's the client's responsibility. Even security, who's responsible for security in an IaaS model? And a lot of the providers said, well, that's the customer who's responsible. So that it's changing the whole thought process. So you need to decide, well, do you want the vendor to be responsible or to participate in that responsibility? Yeah. Or are you happy just to swipe and go and all the accountability and responsibility rests with you as a customer?
And I think we're going to do another episode where we're going to look at that market segmentation, right, in the context of the market pulse, because when you're looking at these 45 vendors, okay, when we look at this holistic cloud market, this is the way they played out.
Yes, that's right.
But we'll also overlay this filter of segmentation, which we saw come out very strongly this year, and that's going to tell a different story again. So you'll be able to see, the logical groupings of the telcos, you'll be able to see the logical groupings of what were the traditional managed services organisations. You'll be able to see the groupings of what are the pure play infrastructure as a service vendors, and that's going to be very interesting. Of course, all that information is in the report, but let's just let's throw the results of the 2012 Trusted Infrastructure as a Service Pulse up now, and we can see, here we go, we can see that the market leader in 2012, IBM.
Yep.
And just as we pan through, you can still see some very big names in that top 10. And so there were 2 other awards this year.
Yeah, local performer, which went to Datacom, and you can see Datacom there, they've scored very, very well. And they, as a result of their efforts in the New Zealand market, have done exceptionally well, and they've basically picked up that strategy and deploying it here in Australia.
And interestingly enough, they're quite a strong IBM partner.
Yes.
As well. And so we've seen some of the vendors change their approach to market this year as well. And so our 3rd award was for the Rising Star.
Rising Star.
Last year, UltraServe, and this year?
Area 9.
Area 9.
And who knows about Area 9? Probably not a lot of people. So it's Darwin based. So anything, I guess, North Queensland, all the Northern Territory, Northern Western Australia is the target market for Area 9. Outstanding business. They were the 3rd enterprise or channel partner to receive the VM cloud credential.
Yeah.
And they have a tier 3 data center there in Darwin, which is cyclone proof, bomb proof, everything that needs to be up there.
Yeah.
Over 50 staff, just a quality outfit, and had to really get the prize this year.
Area 9 is a great story, and for those who aren't across it, I'd certainly go and Google it right now. They're a really wonderful organisation. I guess the final point to leave on is the whole topic of marketing and cloud. Marketing's been such a big part of cloud for the last couple of years, but I think it's become increasingly clear that we've moved well beyond it. And it come from this from 2 perspectives. There are those that are really strong marketing-driven organisations, and that isn't necessarily transforming into the leading cloud solutions. On the flip side, there are organisations that are just terrible at marketing. They're either make a conscientious effort to not market in country, or they do a pretty terrible job of pushing out these convoluted messages. Our studies kind of scratch below that surface. Yeah. So if you're especially good at cloud marketing, we're evaluating you on the same things that we're evaluating the organisations that are especially bad at marketing. And what we typically found was a little bit of surprise about who's kind of finished towards the top end of the market this year. And there's plenty of organisations who are not too good at marketing, who still have some fantastic cloud offerings. And so this is where the evaluation really comes into it. But here's the link to the report, and we'll have a few more episodes on the cloud market in the weeks to come.